What are we doing on this video? So I noticed something kind of strange. I always get so nervous, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna wait 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, I'll do the video. In 10 minutes, I'll do the video. In 10 minutes, I'll do the video. And the main thing that I've learned is that the key to making videos, at least for me, is to just start making them. None of this 10-minute stuff. None of this I'll do it then, I'll do it now. It's all about let's make the video. So let's hit record here. So I noticed something interesting, and it requires our attention. Let me give you a quick peek at what I'm talking about. I have a rabbit's foot fern sitting on this shelf over here, and I've been noticing, dirt just kind of spreading out. Now originally I thought that the dirt was just kind of pouring out of the bottom of this little drain hole here. But upon closer inspection, I've noticed something very strange. You can probably see it. I guess it's not that strange now that I say it, but there's ants. It looks like I've not only successfully, got a rabbit's fern in a nice cement pot over there, but I've also got a built-in ant farm. And ants have completely taken over this rabbit's foot fern, unbeknownst to me, although I should have noticed because I've been seeing dirt come around the outside of that the whole time. Anyways, now it's not uncommon for plants, especially when they've got drain holes, to, kind of spill some dirt on the shelves and things like that. But this plant in particular, this rabbit's foot fern, it's been getting even more and more excessive. Now, I have always had a fascination with ants. I probably will at some point get an ant farm in the laboratory here, but I never had any intention of creating an ant farm within my rabbit's foot fern. So in this video, we're actually going to take care of that. It's going to require a repotting. That's how we're going to solve this solution. And yeah, I grabbed the camera because I thought it would be fun. Anyways, that's the problem that we're going to solve in this video. Is we're going to repot this rabbit's foot fern. We're hopefully going to get rid of all of these ants. Now, as bad as I feel about the ants and how we're about to destroy their home, I never invited them in the first place, if I'm being completely honest. I never had any intention of creating an ant farm within my rabbit's foot fern. And if they weren't making such a flippin' mess, I probably would let them stay. I might even, talk about how it was this awesome symbiotic relationship. So to sum it up, that's what we're gonna be doing on this video. We're gonna be taking this rabbit's foot fern, we're gonna be repotting it, we're gonna be getting all of the little critters that have made a home inside of this thing. Let's stop talking about it, let's be a little bit more about it, and let's get this thing repotted. I'm actually excited to see what's going on inside of this thing just as much as you are. So how should I do this without causing too much of a mess, but also giving you the ultimate view? Here we go. Let's do this. I'm going to slide this bowl under here. And I think what we're going to do is we're just going to pull this thing straight up and see what happens. We'll see if all sorts of little ants and critters start kind of flying around all over the place, but maybe I should do it with this camera too. So let's get in here. Let me grab this thing. I'm going to try and get a nice, good grasp of the roots. Did I actually talk about what epiphytic means, if I'm even saying that word properly? So epiphytic basically means that this rabbit's foot fern doesn't rely on nutrients in the soil to keep itself alive. Similar to air plants and that sort of thing, the rabbit's foot fern will actually take all of the nutrients that it needs out of the air. So by spritzing it and it just sort of naturally living right over there on the shelf, it gets all the nutrients it needs. We're going to get into that in a second when I talk about the, not really specialized, but the potting mix that I'm going to use for this thing. It's a little bit different. It's the same potting mix that I use in all of my tiny little universe bins over there. But I wanted to get that explanation of what an epiphytic plant is out of the way. Did I point out yet the best part about a rabbit's foot fern? Being these little rabbit's feet rhizomes that are coming off of this thing. Inside of this, they kind of look like roots. They're not actually roots, but there's these little fuzzy rhizomes. And I'm not sure the exact reason for these things, but I think the way I'm going to pull this out is just by kind of sticking my fingers in and wrapping it all throughout those rhizomes and then yanking it upwards. I don't really want to get my fingers attacked by these ants, but we're going to do the best we can. All right, let's get in here. I've got a nice big handful. Oh, give it a little shake. Are we getting it on screen over there? Yep. All right, let's see what happens when we pull this out. Okay, I can see the ants. Can you see the ants? I was kind of expecting to see like little tunnels. Oh, you know what? There is little tunnels and stuff. Hold on, let me get a better view for you, because this is actually pretty neat. We'll get this pot out of the way for now. Ooh, you can start to see the ants coming out now. But, oh, even on my fingers. Anyways, I desperately want to get this thing down, but I want to give you a quick view before we get going too far. I probably should be wearing gloves for this. You can see all of the ants. I was going to say that it would have been neat for them to have made tunnels and stuff all throughout this, just like a regular ant farm. And as I was saying that, I kind of realized that they have. You can see all the tunnels and everything there. Nonetheless, we're going to get these ants moved out of here. So while they're still kind of biting and gnawing on my fingers, let's get it over here. Ow. Jeez. They really are kind of biting me. I've already started with no gloves though, so I think I'm just going to continue with no gloves. Let me zoom you in a little bit on this camera while we do this part. There we go. Now all we're going to do is we're just going to clear all this dirt off of here. We're going to get these roots exposed, and then hopefully in the process move all of these ants out of here. All right, so I'm going to give it a good squeeze. Don't worry, I'll come back up there and show you as I get further along. I'll tell you what's going on over here is my hands are just getting absolutely annihilated. I took a good look at these ants before I got started, and I saw that they were black, and I didn't expect them to be so ruthless on my fingers. But it's kind of making me hurry up a little bit. So let's get all this dirt off of here. Let's clear these roots off. Even though I already told you that rabbit's foot ferns are an epiphytic plant and don't require nutrients in the soil, they still do have roots. And the way that I like to think about why they have roots, in case you're wondering, is think of them as sort of an anchor. All plants not only use their roots to kind of pull nutrients out of the ground and the soil, whatever they're living in, but it's also just a way for them to sort of anchor into whatever they're living in. Now, normally I enjoy this part quite a bit, just because I love getting my fingers all into the roots of a plant. I like getting a little bit messy, and I kind of like to see what's hiding under the covers. But in this case, I will admit that it's not such a pleasant experience when it's full of ants, it turns out. The good news is, it appears as though we've done a good job. At least my fingers aren't hurting quite as much anymore. I think I'm trying to make this video more dramatic than it actually is. And in the same way, the ant attack on my hands is more dramatic than I thought it would be. You can see the ant colony desperately struggling to rebuild, or who knows what they're thinking. They're probably viewing me as some sort of a god that's come in and kind of displaced them. Normally what I would do is I would just kind of stick this back in the pot and get to repotting it, but I'm actually going to take this rabbit's foot fern over to the sink, and we're going to give it a good spray, because I want to make sure to get all of the roots completely cleared off, just in case there's any ants and that sort of thing still living way up inside of here. To the kitchen sink anyways. Yeah, I definitely wasn't expecting the ants to be gnawing all over my hands as much as they were, considering they were little black ants, but it'll be all right. Let's give you one more good look while we're at the sink. And again, my goal over here is basically to just clean out everything as much as possible. So we're going to continue to kind of break this up. And I'm going to continue to kind of jam my fingers down into the roots here and just sort of loosen things and get it all nice and clean. Is that a good way to just say it?
Maybe take a little sniff while we're at it.
Plenty. I think I'm going to call this part good. We didn't quite get all the dirt, but I think it'll be good enough. I don't see any more ants crawling around. Is there any more ants on my hands? I don't think so. So I think we've got rid of most of them. There we go. Let's get back into this room now. Now that we've got the roots all cleared off, everything is clean, as I think I can make it. I'm not going to put this back into this ant-filled bowl, so we'll get rid of this for a second. Now that we've got the roots all cleared off of this, it's time to get it repotted. We'll hope for the best at this point. I'll even go through and I'll do a little scrape to make sure to get all the rest of these ants off of here. As we all know, ants can be quite the pesky little pests, especially when they're getting inside of your rabbit's foot fern. And I want to make sure that I get rid of as many as I can, all of them, hopefully. These rabbit foot ferns, I couldn't say that for some reason, because they're epiphytic and they don't actually require the roots to be down in the ground sucking nutrients and that sort of stuff. One other cool thing about these plants, we're not going to do it on this video, but they can be mounted just like a staghorn fern or something like that. So this could actually be, hanging somewhere on the wall. So now that we've got the roots all cleared out, we've kind of done our damage. We've bent this thing up. We've given it the old 1-2, our best effort at getting all of those pesky little ants out of there. My fingers are still a little bit sore. I'm starting to get some bumps and stuff pop up, but that's okay. It's all part of the experience, right? Now that we've got all of that done, I was about to say now that we've got all that done, it's time to repot it, but I've noticed something else, that even the ants are in the, filling the bottom of this pot. So I'm gonna run back out here. I'm not gonna do this part with you. It's gonna be real quick. I'm gonna go give this pot a little spray too. I'll be right back. Look, I've been acting a little erratic on this video. Must be the ants. Probably all those ant bites. Do ants have a little bit of venom or whatever poison that ants have in them? Do they've got something in there? They must. Isn't that what creates all the bumps and stuff? Who knows? So let's give this pot a nice good spritz out while we're at it. Make sure to get all those dirty little ants out of there. My hand's a good wash while we're at it. Should I test to see if my disposal will down all of this stuff? It's downed far worse, so I don't see why not. There we go. I hate it for all the ants that are making their way down to the ocean now, but got strawberry swimming around in there? I think we had a strawberry swimming around in there somehow. Probably didn't clean my sink before I got going. Okay. We've got our pot cleaned. We've got our rabbit's foot fern cleaned as best as we can. Of course, we can't just stick this thing down inside of this pot like this. First of all, we've got to fill it up with some soil. So let me take this opportunity to crack open my, this is what I use for my terrarium mixes. It's not a true potting soil. Again, rabbit's foot ferns are epiphytic, so they don't require any sort of like nutrients or compost or any of that sort of stuff. We're simply going to use the soil inside of this pot, not only to allow the rabbit's foot fern to anchor into something, but this soil will also kind of help keep a humid environment. It's going to participate in the little bubble that we're creating for this plant. And just by having this soil and stuff in there, it's gonna add to the humidity and that sort of thing. What do you call those things that scoop stuff out like that? You know what I was thinking about the other day? I was thinking about what a cool job it would be to drive like a big old like Tonka truck type piece of machinery. We were driving past like a mulch place or a landscaping place that sells mulch and rocks and things like that. And I just thought, wouldn't that be kind of a cool job to be able to drive one of these machines and basically just push big old loads around all day long? Not to mention doing that kind of work would give you those kind of beautiful smells all the time. Okay, did I actually talk about what's in my soil mix here? I don't think I did. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of the video that this dirt is the same dirt that I use in all of my bins and everything like that. Now, a lot of those plants do require nutrients in the soil. In fact, I think almost all of them, except that guy hanging right back there, requires nutrients and stuff in the soil. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just add some sort of a fertilizer into it when I'm creating the mix. But in this case, we're not going to do that. We're just going to use the straight up sterile soil just to give our rabbit's foot fern something to anchor into. This is a super simple mix It's got a bunch of peat moss. That's all of the brown, kind of dirty looking stuff in there. These little bits in here is dried sphagnum moss. So this stuff right here is basically the same thing, or it is the same thing as this stuff right here, except it's just dead and dry. And we're using it in our mix because what it does is it sort of creates a little bit of a spongy environment. It retains water, it holds moisture, it adds to that humidity bubble that I was talking about. So we've got peat moss, we've got sphagnum moss, and then the last ingredient in here is vermiculite. And the vermiculite is basically this stuff. And what that does is it just allows some drainage. So we've got our sphagnum moss in here for the sponginess, we've got our vermiculite in there for the drainage, and then we've got our peat moss in there just to provide the substance. Is that a good word to use? Maybe the substance. And we're gonna stick this guy right back where he came from. Use our fingers again, just like this. Give it a little jab down. Eventually, being a living thing, this will take all those roots that we just cleaned off, and it'll start to, stretch them down and start to grab onto little things in the soil and everything. The only thing we want to make sure that we do, though, is because this plant has these special little fuzzy rhizomes, I don't want to have, shoved them into here too much. So we want to just kind of go through and pull some of these. You don't want to bend them too much because they'll break. But I do just want to sort of get them sticking out over the pot here, make sure that they're not all twisted down into the pot, just like those ones were. See that little lone ant? I'm not usually a proponent of killing things, but we've already sort of attacked them. So I guess just a little squish on one more guy won't be the worst thing that's ever happened to it. Actually, I think it would be the worst thing that's ever happened to it, isn't it? Anyways, let's get all these rhizomes kind of sticking out over the edge here. Encourage them in a direction. And then, yeah, my eventual dream with this thing, what I'd like to see happen is I'd like to see all these fuzzy little rhizomes kind of make their way down and just really, really grab onto this pot and sort of take over it to where it becomes almost to the point where I can't even remove it anymore. That would be the ultimate dream. Another thing I'm a big proponent of is the smoosh. So we'll give it one more smoosh just to kind of pop it in there. Simple process. We had a rabbit's foot fern and it was covered in ants, so it required a repotting. And if I've said anything in this video besides the fact that my face is awfully sweaty, I think we've accomplished the task of removing the ant village from the rabbit's foot fern apartment complex. I don't know, I said village and apartment complex and the same things. We've done a good job. I think we've accomplished it. We've removed the ants from the rabbit's foot fern condominiums. So before we end this thing, I want to clean up the little mess that the ants had made. That was the way that I discovered this little issue in the first place, and that is the way that we're going to discover if we actually did a good enough job of clearing all the ants out of there. If there's no dirt, if there's no more dirt that starts kind of showing up underneath the plant in the next few weeks here, well, at that point, I guess we'll be able to pat ourselves on the back and we'll be able to say that we accomplished the task. Maybe these little ants that I'm sucking up right here, maybe they'll have an opportunity to create an even better space in the old shop vac bag that I got waiting in here. I don't know why it always makes that weird whining noise when I turn it off. Just a little scrub down. Make sure everything's nice and spotless. Just like it should be. Should it be? I don't know. And I think we'll end the video guess where it started? By putting our newly refreshened rabbit's foot fern back on the spot where it came from. And hope for the best. I kind of wanted to say and pray for the rest at the end of that for some reason, but I think I'll just turn the vacuum back on and clean up my table. That's a step that you usually miss when I'm doing these videos, is the cleanup phase. If you didn't see my button mushroom project video, you're going to want to make sure to go back and check that one out, because I did not skip the cleanup phase on that one. In fact, I think I time-lapsed it. We've officially fixed our rabbit's foot fern. Hopefully, I'm going to continue to take good care of it. I'm going to continue to spritz it in the morning. But now I think we finally have figured it out. I think I've finally figured out what was hurting this thing in the first place. And I bet you it had something to do with those pesky little ants crawling around in there. That was a weird video. I do just want to point out that it's been a few hours and I'm seeing a few ants again. So what I've done, my solution, at least in my head, this will work. I've moved our rabbit's foot fern into the shower here. Not only did it need a little bit of a water, not only did I need to give that terrarium soil a nice little soak through, but I figure any of the ants that were kind of straggling off, making their way back home, will come back and they won't see their pot and they won't know where to go, and hopefully they'll move on at that point. Let's get a few of these guys. I'll help those ones move on themselves. Here's a few more that can move on. Some ants were harmed in the creation of this particular video, and I generally don't like to harm anything, but in this case, I think we'll be all right.